Hey there, I'm Eternal, and I'm an object show fan that has barely watched any object shows. We have to fix that. Let's play Object Catchup. Hello and welcome into Object Catchup, the series where we discuss object show episodes right after watching them. Whether they are new or old, famous or unknown, it doesn't matter. We will get to it all. Now, for today, we have a new series that we have to watch. It's not a new series, it's actually a very old series that has gotten a new episode yesterday, a big new release. I'm talking about Battle for Paradise Objects Reloaded, or BFPOR, created by WoopDoo. Yes, I have a lot of things to keep up with. You know, even some creators have told me, yo, you should watch my new episode. And I'm like, yeah, I should. It's just that there keep being new big releases that I have to cover, and this one absolutely, it just can't wait. You know, it's one of those object shows that's like it's valued as one of the big ones, you know, with like I mean, the new episode one day 50,000 views. That's absolutely big one. You know, the other episodes all over 100k. I said like the original remakes, which whatever, there's a 1 minute long, right? So absolutely, this was a must to watch. It was a must to prioritize. So I'm sorry to everybody else. So, there are 5 episodes of BFPOR, however, there's also 2 episodes of a previous series called BFPO. We're going to be following the list of videos as is dictated by the Battle for Paradise Objects Reloaded playlist, which means I'm going to watch BFPO 1 and 2 with the remade versions from 9 months ago, and then heading into BFPOR with its 5 episodes, alright? That is the order that I'm going to follow. This might be the entirety of the video, or depending on how much time I have or what I want to cover, I might do a couple of other things just to not be extremely far behind for future days. However, no promises, alright? We will start off here with BFPO 1, which is titled The Balanced Beam of Life, a remake released 9 months ago. Here goes. Okay, so that is BFPO 1 remake. So this this is interesting, because now I'm starting to wonder, why was this remade? Because, like, okay, then what? Was the original BFPO a joke show? Because now I'm just curious of what the hell that was, right? Because I just saw a very clearly made to be rough, made to be bad show, right? Like, it's very jokey. At the end of the day, I mean, like, for some reason in episode 1 we're already talking about who gets eliminated. We have the freaking the characters are one of them is just the worded dank. Like, what is going on? Like, the logo for freaking I don't know what you're called. I'm just gonna call you the WoopDoo logo for now, because I don't know what else it would be. Is like ends up it's in the lower quality version of itself. Somehow in episode 1 we still got 2 votes. Like, I don't know how any of this has happened, right? But then it starts to wonder, well, how? And then of course the gag that, oh, there's gonna be a balance being challenged next episode, haha, everybody's out, haha, right? So I mean, I have no idea why this needs a remake, you know? Like, I'm just imagining, because well, I mean, wouldn't it be better to have honest bad rather than remade bad? I don't know. I don't know if I'm too convinced. But anyways, I mean, I'm interested because, of course, then this means that probably both this and like the original were joke episodes, which I think implies that, you know, heading into BFPOR, I'm gonna be curious to see how much of the jokiness ends up actually remaining, or if it eventually ends up turning into serious serious problems. I don't know. I'm curious to see. But alright then, now let's head into BFPO 2. BFPO 2, I believe, was also released 9 months ago. Yes, it was. And it's titled The World's Biggest Problem. Let's find out what it is. Okay, so that is episode 2 of BFPO. So, I was looking at the credits and I was like, well, I find it really interesting how this has 7 animators on it, right? But then I was thinking about it and I was like, well, this is a high-level troll. Because what are we doing? So, like, there's an interesting debacle that's going on here, right? Is that how do you make high effort, low effort, right? How do you do it? Because those feels like clashing themes. But the thing about it is, this is high effort memery, right? Because it's like, you'll notice that, like, when shows are like bad on purpose, in the sense of, like, of course the quality is intentionally, like, everything is intentionally disproportionate, dialogue is intentionally goofy, things are intentionally off, right? Like, at the end of the day, what makes it a high level meme is that what makes like this a high level meme is that you'll notice just how many different little gags there are, right? in the same way of like just how the mouths change up how they move, right? Like sometimes they're inverted, sometimes they're not, right? Or like same thing goes with like the random hand movements with like the with the host here, right? Or like the Ruby and everything, right? Like it's just the amount of variation that all of it has. Like sometimes she speaks normally, sometimes she speaks super like with the whole body going up and down, right? Like there's just all these differences. Same thing goes with like, I don't know, Robbie Rodden, right? Like all of these things end up counting to make a relatively high effort meme with a couple of proper scenes, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. Overall, why do we need to watch this to head into BFPOR? I have no idea. I mean, the amount of like the amount of total lore that I've gathered from this is currently very minimal. I've gathered nothing. There's a Ruby clone, there's a depressed train, and there's a ice cream people find creepy. There's some memes. I don't know I don't know what's happening, but apparently, hey, I don't know. This is canonical, guys. So I guess I just have to trust it. But yeah, this is something for sure. Like, we don't even get to see a challenge. Wasn't the challenge literally to just like, you two have to help me find new... Oh, no, that wasn't the challenge. It was just you... Oh, you have to help me, but it's not for the challenge. You just got it. Okay, interesting, I must admit. Yeah, sure. Let's go with it. Alright. Time to go way back to the past, because 8 years ago, the first episode of BFPOR happened. It's also the most viewed episode of BFPOR, because episode 1. 8 years ago, Don't Fall Down. Let's see how it was. Okay, so that is BFPOR 1, Don't Fall Down. Now, okay, so I'm starting to understand a little bit more. Because I was wondering, yeah, how BFPOR was going to work, right? Because looking at BFPO, and it was obviously kind of joke show shenanigans. So I was wondering, was BFPOR also going to be all just show shenanigans, right? Or is it more serious? Because at the end of the day, I don't know what BFPOR is. I don't know that it's a show that people watch. I don't know what it is, right? But like I was guessing it to be probably, at least nowadays, probably more in the serious end, in terms of like, you know, animation quality and stuff. However, here, as far as 8 years ago, we are still definitely very, very, very firmly in the jokey show aspect. Like to a crazy degree. Like it's really interesting to look at this, right? Because like, of course, when doing something like Object Catchup, I'm taking a look at a lot of new releases and a lot of new episodes with people. So like, we're starting to see, you know, the new references, the new things, right, that eventually get dropped down. However, to see what like 2018 shit posting was like it is kind of crazy. I don't know. It's like older than that. When the hell did this video? No, it's 2017 shit posting. Like it takes you back. It's like, oh shit, bro, that time was crazy. Like you get Robbie Rodden, which speaks in weird number 1 line, right? And they have like the references are very interesting. Like the II original and everything, but yeah, we end up having like the B movie, like as mentioned a few times. Like it's such a shenanigan. The fidget spinner, there's a fidget spinner up there. Like there's actually just like it's so 2017, but it's interesting because like, to be fair to it, okay, despite the fact that it's old and everything, there is one detail that this show manages to get very, very, like that it understood, but before a lot of things understood, right? Is that it understood the power of the visual gag, right? Like it was like, it understood that a joke doesn't have to necessarily just be dialogue. And in fact, this show, and even BFPO, achieves majority of its comedy not by literally telling you comedy. It does it by just simply having the characters look different, right? Like a character slowly getting more squished, right? Slowly getting more stretched out. The mouth was different. Oh, this part's randomly not lip synced. Right? And all that stuff. Like, it's kind of... It's a type of thing where like it tries to hit you with a completely different one, and it was something that I pointed out in BFPO. Like that is what high quality, low effort looks like. This is also doing that. It doesn't do it, of course, as much, right? It's tougher to realize, right? Because obviously we are in 2017. However, yeah. As far as for the things that matter, app is real, okay? App is the name of the host, which I was calling WoopDoo because I didn't know their name. But App is the name. Why are you called App? I have no idea. I don't, like, is there an app that looks like I swear there's like a Game Center apps in some phones that looks like that. Or like the gallery sometimes looks like that. I don't know what app would look like this. Because I'm just trying to calculate what app is this. But nah, I don't know. But yeah, they're off hosting an object show with a crazy balance beam challenge. Which is epic. Apparently the price is 8 octillion, 672 septillion, 127 sextillion, and 482 quintillion dollars. Which, okay, you want to hear my random ass prediction? Because I think I remember what this number is. Okay, hear me out. This is the film theory episode about the one B movie meme where every time they say B, every episode of The Simpsons plays, but every time they say whatever, like it's this meme that's like the omega long compilation, and that compilation would take so long that it would take 8 octillion years. I remember that was a video calculated on film today. I think that's what that was. If I'm correct, that is the most crazy poll ever. But I think that's like how long that video would have been after a map I calculated it. But yeah, so the balance beam challenge ends up being a balance beam challenge. It says eventually not. BFB existed by then, which is kind of I low-key kind of forget it was a thing. What episode of BFB were in? We were in BFB like 10. But eventually we end up having ourselves the frosting. Yeah, frosting is what you're called, who could fly. And eventually they get kicked over into the sun. So as they get kicked into the sun, the balance beam challenge gets scrapped. Yeah, like see this gag with like the McNugget or whatever they're called. Like talking about the background for only that scene is completely disintegrating. Like it's comedic because it's a constant switch. Like you constantly have to keep looking for what the visual gag in this is in the scene. So this show, even back in the day, it understood this concept, which is nice, right? Like for a joke show, I think that having that visual gag reiteration, right, instead of having a consistently like what's like, oh, it looks kind of funny once and then it remains that way, so they kind of stop being funny. It constantly hits you with that, right, and switches itself up, right, which is nice, which is useful. Eventually they end up bailing on the challenge because they want to go say frosting over there on the sun. So they end up doing that. The fellas on the rocket, if I'm not mistaken, win the challenge, I think, because they got them safely. End up having a random, what is this? It's a random debate between the cheese fella and the t-shirt that's like a weird color. So they end up doing that. You have a commercial for what? It's like okay, look, I don't know what product specifically it was, but it was like, it's some YouTube poop commercial of like a slime, because slime was also relevant. I mean, we put in all of the hard hitting topical things over there in the episode. Like we did all of that. We were not messing around. We were like, list of memes of the year, and then we just put those in. Like it's still kind of crazy. Like again, internet culture then, it really did feel, it felt like the internet, in my opinion, at that time felt more united, at least culturally, because like there was no dodging it, right? There's a reason why that era of memes still sticks around, despite the fact that those memes are so cringe. People still mention stuff like fidget spinners, like we're still mentioning that stuff, and like it's kind of it's the slimes and all that and those gags, right? Like so many of them are just a thing. And like yeah, I mean that era it was really crazy, but yeah, eventually. A bunch of people end up being up for elimination based on just kind of raw vibes after the spaceships end up kind of making a little bit of a mess. So the people that are up for elimination are Topaz, Toy Train, Hailers, Gamesphere, Nothing, Robbie Rotten, Blue Suitcase, Cheese Slice, and Chartreuse Sweatshirt. Who's getting eliminated? You think I know? Okay, here's the deal. Voting, this is one of the biggest questions that I've not personally have formed an answer to, but I think that it might be yes, is that has voting patterns changed from the eras, right? Because, of course, you know, the people that watch shows in 2018 are a different set of people that watch shows now. You know, different kids are watching it now, and then the other adults, right? But they're not here. The other adults are the one, like, you know, the kids that have turned into the younger adults, and then the kids, and there's new kids to vote, right? Like, it's refresh. So theoretically, the technical voting patterns of an average crowd in the OSC should technically have changed. However, it's difficult to know. And either way, like with this show especially, it's really hard to know because like there's not too much information to base off of. I mean, you can base it on BFPO, I guess. BFPO did actually release before, but I mean, not by the episodes that I watched. Like, I don't know, what would these people do? Would they vote out based on memes? Would they vote out Robbie Rotten because of that? Would they vote out Blue Suke because lazy? Would they vote out the Steam Train because, like, they're the biggest one? Would they vote out the Sweatshirt because that was kind of mean? I mean, the Sweatshirt has, like, the angry face emoji, so maybe we'll vote them. Let's say them. Let's say the Chartreuse Sweatshirt is the character that's getting out. But, like, I don't really know. I'm gonna be honest. Like, it's kind of difficult to say. But, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, apparently bro went to another show, Red Echidna, dude, I don't know what we're referring to, but, yeah, interesting little thing, very interesting. I think that, like, I'm just really curious on what is going to happen, you know, like, heading into the show, as a more like full thing in the modern era. You know, the episodes get longer, they seem to be getting more proper. I'm curious at how the show evolves because there's of course a massive break after 2A. So that's gonna I'm just gonna be honest. I'm very curious. I don't currently have any idea how exactly that's gonna work. All I know is that before we can get to that break, we have another episode to watch. It's BFPOR 2A, which is 10 minutes long. It's longer than episode 1, and it is titled Cronic Incarceration. Okay, go. Alright, so that is BFPOR 2A Cronic Incarceration. So yeah, I mean, this episode just suffers from the act of just writing slow. Like, you know when you just write slow, right? Like you decide, yes, I'm going to introduce the characters one by one. I'm going to show the results one by one and make jokes along the way. Like it just ends up and have the interactions post-challenge happen in this episode as well. It's like somehow this episode, that's like literally just the elimination ceremony plus the team forming, is longer than the entirety of the last episode of episode 1. That's just the explanation. Because last episode doesn't really focus on introducing the characters. This one does for some reason, right? When we could have just had a quick showcase and boom, you skip out on 30 minutes, right? It's because it's those types of things where it's like you understand that, like, oh yes, I have to introduce the character. Yes, you do. However, the thing about it is that you can do multiple things at the same time, right? Like you can introduce the challenge, you can introduce characters during a challenge. You can introduce characters during the start, right? You can do all of those things. But instead, we have an entire new section entirely dedicated to just introducing these characters, and that's unnecessary, right? Like we don't need that. Which makes this episode take a while. Again, with all of the gags written in the middle, it ends up just being very complicated. Like the incredible intro plus the title card combo. We don't need both. I mean, one can do both. You know, like these are the types of things that just sort that. It's those things again individually. Yes, the intro will be cool. Yes, the title card will be cool. Yes, this will be cool. But like again, it just ends up kind of complicating everything. So I understand why this episode went in 2A. And I mean, if you were writing in this style, heading into a challenge, bro, that challenge was about to be 20 minutes long, because it is, yeah, it's tough. I mean, we know that BFPOR 2B doesn't exist. Like it just skips episode 3, so I don't really know. But I mean, episode 3 is called 2B or not 2B, so I don't know. But like, we would have to see. But anyways, what are we actually chatting about? Well, we are chatting about the elimination. First of all, dude, again, the times, man. We get, like, the warning that, like, no jokes made at the expense of Robbie Rotten are, of course, supposed to hits on Stefan, which is the voice actor and actor, not the voice actor. I mean, I guess as well, by both, right? The actor for Robbie Rodden, who passed away that year, which was very unfortunate. I remember. But we end up having a little bit of some lore on what the hell Cheese went to do. They apparently met up with the Knuckles guy, did a challenge, it got one of them to go in, and then they went to a drama. They participated in other object shows apparently, because App just so happens that every time that there's a break, they go leave for 4 years. We have the recommended characters. I think these recommended characters, by like so much, you can see how much these recommended characters fit the vibe of the show. Like, you can tell how recommended characters, they kind of fit the vibe, right? Like, you notice, for example, BFDI recommended characters, they're way less serious. If you'll notice, BFDI recommended characters tend to be kind of, they're like, it's very rare that you actually find a very good design in there. I'm really sorry, because a lot of them are just like, oh, yo, blue fiery, right? And because that's just kind of the vibe. But however, in other object shows, when you see recommended characters, they're much more likely to be real, right? To be proper and different character designs. And they're kind of made to be related to the show. So in this one, they are technically made to be related for the show, but you'll notice how they're all memes. Jack Black, Sexy, Roblox, Shrek, Greg, Heffley, Sans, Undertale, right? Like these aren't. Yes, there are characters who have been recommended, but like you see how like it's just kind of it's very much so memes. So yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. Then we end up having ourselves the elimination. One thing that I'm gonna point out is that, like, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, this show, it looks interesting still, because it's like, you could very clearly tell that even for 7 years ago, wait, was the first episode 8 years ago? The first episode, this one was 7 years ago. That even for 7 to 8 years ago, the standard of animation that was actually being delivered here is pretty good. Like, you won't be able to really notice it too much because it's very masqueraded. You know, it's masqueraded by memes, masqueraded by intentionality, doing it wrong. However, you can notice in certain scenes and just in the way that certain places look, like the elimination area, for all that it is, looks very solid, and the characters like App, when they're actually saying serious things, they end up looking pretty interesting, and they have a lot of goofy faces, but they have good looking goofy faces, you know, like it's overall pretty solid. Then it goes for a character like Topaz. When Topaz isn't playing around, you'll notice that Topaz looks just very solid, right? Like all around. So in a way, I'm like half surprised that this exists, because this is the type of show where it's like, because usually how it goes, right? It's when you're making this type of sarcasm joke show, it's very rare to see somebody with, but it's very rare to see somebody with a lot of skill start a sarcasm joke show, right? Because like they're too good for the joke, right? In a way, and they'd rather work for real. So in a way, something like this show or BFPO is interesting because like we already started off with a relative capability, right? With a relative amount of ability, which is interesting because like comparatively speaking, there's a lot of quality for it. Although it's like hidden in between all of the animation gags. And again, just the fact that we're doing a lot of animation gags, it means that we are relatively proficient. We're confident as well, right? You know, like just because like it takes confidence to do it, and we are in fact doing it, which means that we know our craft, we know what works and how to defy it in a way that's funny, right? So that's like what this show's absolutely doing, in a relatively solid way. So yeah, I mean, I'm just curious. Again, it kind of depends on what BFPO was its original variant, because I have no idea. However, yeah, that's kind of interesting because what is it? Oh yeah. Usually how these jokes show, but then we're like, oh well, but joke shows still exist and they're good. Like, I don't know, Object Cringe was mostly a joke show. Sorry, right? Yes, but like usually how that goes is it goes low quality, builds itself into high quality as the person evolves and keeps the show going, right? But usually somebody starts at high quality, the show doesn't start there as well, basically. That's what I'm saying. Eliminated is Robbie Rotten. I don't know if I said that before, but yeah, the eliminated was Robbie Rotten with 200 votes. That makes sense. I mean, they didn't do much to defend themselves. Again, personally, I think that characters that speak in voice lines are cool. However, I mean, Robbie Rotten didn't speak in voice lines because they just didn't speak in general. So it's probably just kind of a bad idea. Alright, anyways, a team. The two teams are formed. We end up having Blue Suke gets split in two to be given half to each team. So a McNuggets team, which is McNugget, nothing, sweatshirt, cheese slice, bowling ball, and I guess the left half, and they're going on that team. That team is okay. I mean, it got cheese slice, which I think is pretty good. I like having screen time and stuff. I feel like in this show, if you have screen time, it's probably a pretty good idea. So I like them. I mean, the other fella and the right half ends up going to the team with Toy Train, the Gun, the Frosting, the Hilarious, and then the Topaz. So yeah, there's an ambulance. I don't know if you can hear it, but oh, it is pretty loud. Okay, thank you. But yeah, we end up having that team go well. What do I think of this team? This team is like, it's got Topaz in it, who's pretty cool. It's got Frosting in it, who's pretty important. Toy Chain's pretty important. I feel like this team might be mildly more sorted out than the other one. However, they might lose. They would probably lose a first challenge. And then we have a third team that just so happens to exist because we decided to form it. This team has Aardvark, Matt Damon, who got introduced. You see, for example, this fella gets introduced at the beginning. Okay, cool. Well, fine, we introduced the character. But then we reintroduce them again. That's not necessary. We didn't need to do that. Peppa Pig hairdryer. Sure, why not? A Tootis roll, who's a Tootsie roll, but it's spelled wrong. We end up having a pumpkin dude who, yet again, pretty solid animated. It's kind of South Parky, but it's relatively well made. Pingu Bible, who seems to be the only serious character. And then we end up having Josh and the Big Wad DVD Menu, who I think is a VeggieTales movie, but gets absolutely shot. They have a goofy single tooth. And we end up also having a co-host titled, what are you calling? You had a name. Cronic the Burger. And the McNugget be like, ooh, Big Mac. And then eats it, which is not recommended. I'm interested. I mean, I don't know. McNugget saw a Big Mac and was just like, oh, I'm going to eat that. I mean, I don't know if that's cannibalism, but like, the Big Mac and the McNugget, you know, they're right from the same family, technically. I'm just saying. But like, yeah, you know, they're McDonald's. But apparently the new challenge ends up being to go save them from, okay. Oh yeah, by the way, okay. So McNugget gets sentenced to 20 years in prison. And then the challenge ends up being to go save them, which is interesting. Okay, I don't know how they're gonna do that, and will we ever find out? No. I mean, like, episode 3 is the next episode. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it is that this challenge is what happens in episode 3, but something will happen in episode 3. But like, we're gonna have to see. There's really not much else. We're just gonna have to see. Yeah, so these two episodes that we watched were 8 years old and 7 years old. It's now time to head into 2025. Alright, like, yes, that is how long it is. It's already managed to have 3 episodes. It managed to have 3 episodes. No, well, 2 episodes in 2025 and 1 episode in 2026. So yeah, 11 months ago, BFPOR 3 released, titled "To Be or Not to Be." I see the gag. Let's see the episode. Alright, so that is going to be none other than BFPOR 3, To Be or Not to Be. It is in fact to be, I'm not gonna lie. However, yeah, so we have a nearly complete tonal change, yeah, in terms of like the average like tone of how things are written, how things are structured, right? But as we saw from the BFPO remakes, it's not for a lack of understanding, right? Things aren't looking different or written different for a lack of knowing how it was previously written. It has simply changed because we felt that change is the best solution for this show, right? Because is it? Yes, it is. Because while I was pointing out that, like, I think that the quantity of like that the show understood visual gags, which is something that a lot of object shows sometimes have struggled to do, right? Because visual gags are kind of hard to imagine because you're writing them, because it's hard to write them, right? You have to do it during the animation process, but when you do it without the animation process, sometimes the download doesn't allow for it. Like, it's kind of like that situation. While that's one of the complicated parts, that show nailed it. However, I'm saying that show as if it's a different show. The previous episodes nailed it. However, at the same time, while it nailed the fact that you should do that, it didn't nail the fact that, holy, that's too much. Like, it was exaggerating to the point of animatic. It's like animatic levels of just tuck 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 tuck. But then when every character the tuck 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 tuck, and it's 8-year-old humor, tuck tuck tuck, it's like, oh my god, bro, we need to relax. So this show ends up doing that. So of course the question is, how do we transition into the modern way? Well, we actually find out how. It's actually based on time, as the characters switch based on time. Because what happens is a couple of fellas get more arrested, and then they have walkie-talkies, which, by the way, they have, since that's a new thing. And then Cheese Slice and Game Sphere ended up getting arrested because, for trying to look too cool during a prison break. But yeah, even though like this is much more chilled out, right, in terms of like show pacing, right? Like not pacing. Pacing, it was really chilled out before, but like in terms of like how many gags, how many jokes are being done, even though it's chilled, it's a little bit more serious. Like it's a entertainment show, right? Now it's become more like an entertainment show rather than just a directly just comedy only thing, right? Like it's still trying to be a show with things happen, even though a lot of it are jokes, right? But it's just trying to not do jokes literally 24/7 on your face. Like it sets up jokes rather than just doing jokes kind of at random, right? Instead of doing a one segment joke, it does a 2 segment, right? Kind of like that. It still does it pretty well. It doesn't actually forget about visual gags. I found like the explosion that happens with like the camera slowly glitching itself out. Like that's really really funny. And the timing as well is funny. Like a lot of that stuff's really cool. But eventually they end up just sitting there and waiting it out because, hey, I mean, App will come back sometime, I'm sure. And then after 6 years, they don't come back. And then we end up having new assets for our contestants. Yes, new assets for everybody, except nothing, I guess. But their limbs probably look different. Does Blue Suitcase? Yeah, Blue Suitcase does look different. So, what do I think about this? I mean, I'm not gonna lie. We are working overtime to get these assets to look any near interesting. Because, like, I mean, we're dealing with a bad cast of contestants. If we want to do a show with things that happen, we're dealing with a bad cast of contestants. And I'm not just saying that because, I mean, they have a cool personality, but it's just their object that's goofy. Okay, yeah, but the problem is they don't. Like, we don't, like, majority of those characters are like both dumb concepts and didn't have any personality, right? So we're just dealing with a not a good cast of characters. However, we end up having a couple of redesigns, right, that need to fix a couple of major things. First of all, it's way more lineless. There are still lines, however, they've been made to mesh with the bodies a lot more by having a subtle hue to them that like the lines, the outlines themselves have a subtle hue of the character in it, which is not something that a lot of object shows do. A lot of them, have it be pure black. And characters like Topaz have just changed kind of how they look. Instead of they have a big inner diamond and then outer layers rather than Ruby, which has it more like, all around, like it's triangles all heading towards the middle rather than one big middle triangle and then triangles on the outlines, right? Then it goes for a character like Tootsie Roll, no text anymore. Every other character with text on it, like the Josh and the Pingu Bible, became fully lineless within their design, which makes their faces stand out a little bit more, and also stops if it stops text over face, which kind of still looks weird. Same thing goes for like face over face, since both of us had faces in the face with the penguins and the VeggieTales, right? The only character that basically doesn't get a proper redesign is the Pumpkinhead, because they don't really need it, and Blue Suitcase barely does. They just get that new lines, as I said. we have ourselves a new intro. It's a very classic object show from 7 years ago intro. I'm not gonna lie. It's like, no, it's exactly like this. But like all of those intros were like that. But hey, it's cool. And we actually have a proper logo. I know, right? Crazy. He never had a proper logo before because the intros were always memed up. But yeah, we end up having Operation BFPOR. Basically, split off into sections, find stuff, return back at a certain time. Then we can do new groups based on the findings, go different places, and then repeat. That seems like a good strategy. However, that seems like a good strategy until app just appears at random right as the thing is about to appear. And I'm like, yo, what the hell's happening? Yeah, you see, like, app, it's just a little bit. I would have made, okay, what I would have done, I would have probably had, like, a little bit of a more transitional period. Because, like, the thing about something like app is that app was just, like, have you seen app's face? During episode 2A, like it just moves so much, but now you have in this episode where it barely moves, and it's like it's a bit too much. I would have had a little bit of transition period where it's like, or like, okay, tone it down but still do it a little bit, and then afterwards, like, slowly it switches itself into not doing it right as time passes, because I feel like just going straight from all to zero is kind of the more awkward part, right? Because app kind of stops feeling like app in a weird way, right? And again, it's complicated because I know that app doesn't stop feeling like app. We are just reimagining what app is, right? Because they're like, that's what we're supposed to be doing. It's been 6 years. We're not losing track of who app is. We're just reconstructing who app is, right? With my personality, because, like, for example, app way more jokey every time. Here they just see, like, basically, I think we've reconstructed app to, instead of being jokey, they're more obliviousy. So they do stuff kind of in the more obliviously, oh, I can't do that, right? Rather than in the, oh, haha, that would be funny, right? Then kind of in that way, basically, that we're reconstructing app here, which is interesting. App also gets a new design, which is fair. And then we end up having ourselves some new co-hosts, which end up being, who the hell? Jimmy, Golden Jimmy, and Silver Alvin. They both end up joining because app kidnapped them and then ended up doing that. Ended up having an argument. And then everybody is up for elimination. Now, why is everybody up for elimination? I don't know, because they wanted to. I mean, technically everybody lost the challenge, right? So, yeah, what do I think? I think that, okay, objectively, one of the blue suitcase pieces should go, because, of course, they are completely irrelevant characters, right? However, I don't think we're going to agree on who. So I'm probably expecting somebody like the Matt Damon to get out, because they basically don't have any screen time, as I said. They don't do anything. Same thing goes with, like, the Peppa Pig, but I'm saying that Matt Damon. I'm gonna say that Matt Damon gets out, but it's really hard to guess, because a lot of these a lot of these characters already didn't have screen time 7 years ago, and they still don't have screen time now, so that they just kind of have a global no screen time, right, which is interesting. There's a couple of songs which are pretty cool. Like, none of them really stood out like 1,000,000,000% yet, but I also, only listened to them once. So, yeah. Alright. That's all for BFPOR 3. Time to head into episode 4, which was released, I should probably check, it was released 3 months ago, as the 16-minute episode. Win a family. Go! Oh yeah, wait, I'm sorry. I just have to mention this because I think it's really funny. I love it. I was checking, like, episode 3, and I saw that one, and I was like, wait, why is the most viewed part of the credits? Oh yeah, it's because there's they make this scene where, like, they freaking Topaz just is, like, what is Topaz and the toy train, they're just hugging, and then there's the heart above them. That is not subtle. I must admit that is not one of the most subtle things ever done. But yeah, I mean, you know what? Fair enough, viewers will know. That's kind of like, because when you're in the credits, you'll be like, oh, okay, this is gonna be normal, and then you'll go, hey, yo, right? So yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Okay, now for real, let's win a family. Go. Alright, so that is BFPOR 4, win a family. So you see, this is more like the first honest episode of the modern BFPO, right? Because, like, in the last episode, it was more so just trying to, like, hold the stuff over. It didn't have a challenge. It was just trying to be like, okay, how to go from this to modern era, right? And we end up doing it by doing that. By doing, like, that whole, like, shebang with the transition, everything, right? And then I've been gone, I've been doing that, right? But then it's like, I still believe that should have just been 2B. I'm not gonna lie. Like, they named it episode 3, probably because it's been so long, but I just made it 2B because it doesn't feel like a full episode. It really doesn't. Like, it does just feel like a 2B despite the time. But either way, this is the first honest episode of Modern BFPOR, and it has an identity, alright? It has an identity. So, as you can see, we are really making App to be the kind of, like, joyously unaware sort of evil character, right? Like, the character that's, like, annoying and also dangerous in a way where they're not aware that they're either of those things because they're too obliviously joyful to realize anything that they do is wrong. Right, that's the best way that I could possibly describe App, because, like, it's like that, right? Because, like, for example, if you take a host like, I don't know, an animatic is on my mind a lot. It's like, animatic acts pretty joyous, however, they're very much so aware of what they're doing, right? At the end of the day, they don't feel unaware, because they don't, like, however, this fella definitely does whenever they kill people with a chainsaw. Like, they don't kill people with a chainsaw because, like, they're evil or whatever. These kill people with a chainsaw because they don't know that you're not supposed to do that. There's been no societal learning that took place, right? Between it. So, yeah, that's kind of what's going on here. One thing that I like to point out, I like how, we're kind of like messing with this freaking Apple gallery intro, like the way that Cheese Slice just introduces the freaking their plushie, which exists, by the way. And can you go buy? I feel like you can go buy it, I think. And yeah, and we end up having ourselves a little bit of an interesting situation. So the BFPO people, remember the people in BFPO, they have they're in an elimination island that again exists, and McNugget ends up joining them there alongside Robbie as well, who end up being up there, and McNugget ends up finding these people weird. However, of course, it's kind of the interesting question, but these people, they were not in BFPOR, right? Now, that's a different show. That's like a different thing. So it's like, hold up, how the hell? So yeah, that's the lore point that's probably gonna get explored as more people get eliminated and going to the island. And Adrian's going, bad things happen to those who don't flip. McNugget goes, hello, I would rather go to jail. And then they end up having the gags of going to jail. Yeah, another one of the things that I think distinguishes this from the previous, the old era episode of BFPR is that we've switched the joke style, right? So I mainly said this during one of the other reviews, I think for ACE4, but when we're doing comedy in an object show, there's two ways to do comedy. You can do a reference comedy, where, like, the joke is that it is something else that you know, right? Like, it is a meme, for example. If you put a meme in your show, that is joke by reference, because you're referencing a meme and you're doing that. Or you can do an original joke, right? That's like its own joke that ends up, just purely working by itself, right? Because, like, something funny has literally happened right there, and it's not relying on any other media knowledge for it to be the joke, right? And, like, you can tell that in the original BFPOR, we're doing decisively the joke by reference, right? In the way that we reference, like, fidget spinners, in the way that we reference slime, in the way that we reference like, even, Robbie Ron is a character. Majority of these characters, at the end of the day, the kind of references from the time, right? We directly mention memes. We directly mention object shows, right? Like we end up making these references, and like that is directly just kind of the style of comedy that ends up being delivered in that show, right? In the same way that we end up having memes in, like, I think BFPO 1 ends up being like stay tuned, be tuned, because that's right? Like those are the gags. However, in something like this, we end up we now in the modern era switch away. Joke by reference is now very rare. We end up having them entirely be custom jokes being made for the sake of it, which I think it's fun. I think it's cool. Not gonna lie, the intro is starting to hit. The song, low key, this is starting to get good now. After a couple listens. However, the elimination time is hosted by the two fellas that I never remember the name. One of them is called Alvin. The other is called like Golden whatever. So we end up having them display the votes, which ends up having the eliminated contestant be Matt Damon. I'm surprised that I actually got that correct. The votes were apparently very split between all of the cast. That makes sense. Nobody knows any of them. Like, the amount of knowledge that we've gained on them is like so minimal. But yeah, they end up making them all on paper to build suspense. But yeah, we end up having Cheese Slice throw the baby in the dumpster that they end up receiving from the Matt Damon. But you see, that's what I mean. Like, that's a gag that is original and works and then calls back to itself, right? That's one of the things. Basically, original jokes can make a show overall so much funnier because they end up doing callbacks to itself, right? So, for example, when at the end of this episode, you end up having Cheese like take in a pet and then proceed to throw them back into the same dumpster where the baby was crying. That's both continuity in jokes, and also the joke boosts the other joke because you paid attention. You're like, oh yeah, right? Like, those are that's that type of comedy that's like that's good. Like, that's the good stuff. And then eventually we end up going towards the first real challenger for that app wants to make. Well, first we have to switch up the team of the, what the hell they call, the poopy stinky, the poopy meanies that smell bad. And they're switching their name, however, they're forced to pick a name within 10 seconds. They have literally no idea what name they're going to pick until nothing just says the magical growing puddles of milk. Why? I don't know. However, they do say that, and App ends up memeing them a lot by calling them milkers. Okay. So that's like interesting. Okay, so Topaz and Toy Train, they're just like constantly hugging now. I don't know if Toy Train, does Toy Train care? I feel like this is one-sided. I feel like this is just Topaz, but okay. Because ever since the other outro, they're doing that. But, alright, we end up actually heading into the challenge now with the game show set. So, I'm gonna be absolutely for real. This is debatably one of the best individual sets that I think I've probably ever seen in an object show. The way that this looks is actually just stunning. You know, it just looks extremely good. The background work done here is intense. I mean, it is very good. Yeah, no, like, it is everything. Of course, it is mildly boasted about the fact that like, it's a game show set. Game show sets are specifically meant to look like bright lights and everything. But hey, if it works, it works. I can't complain about that. And we end up having ourselves the actual bulk of the challenge. There's another app that's in the crowd that doesn't actually get explained. I don't know who this is. They're like they have the exact same look. They look exactly the same as app, however they don't seem to be called app, or at least I don't know. They might also be called app. They end up switching to like a soundboard app, and they end up acting as a soundboard, which is quite fun. However, I don't really know who they are. I mean, that's an interesting. I want to know. It's like app's brother. But yeah, we end up having ourselves the quiz show, who is pretty bad. There's a pretty bad question in terms of questions. They end up kind of just being questions where the questions don't make sense, the answers make somehow less sense than the questions, and then there's just it's just a global problem, right? Everybody who gets out proceeds to get absolutely violently violented. They sometimes are alive, a lot of the times they're not. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Apparently, Wonder arrives at the age of 43. So yeah, there we go. And there were like 473 marshmallows in Bro cereal. Who do you eat marshmallows for cereal? Okay, but then we also this other stuff. The date that GameSteer will die. What date will GameSteer die? 2085. Okay, and then we have Recovery Center. How do you know? Probably die in 3 minutes. Okay, but all right, fine. That we can do that. The we ends up making them go bankrupt, and then we end up discovering that Nothing actually has a career in music. Did you know that Nothing has a career in music? I didn't know that, but now we know. Nothing apparently loved singing about a farm because apparently by did we not invent country music yet? We're like, why is he singing about a farm? Bro, have you heard country music? I'm gonna go down to the lawn. Old Town Road, I'm gonna ride. But that's a genre of music. That's pretty popular. I thought he did that. Come on, bro. I thought we've been to Texas. But alright then. We end up doing the bonus wheel where we end up choosing somebody to get out. So we end up choosing the Josh fella. That makes perfect sense. And we end up having our custom challenger. First to get to the end ends up winning. However, you're getting chased around by a chainsaw. Of course, that means that app gets way too distracted by just chainsawing people. This is at the end of the day, this has been known to be a 100% effective bait to get people to like your host. If you make your host act happy while murdering people at the same time, you will be making an iconic host. It just is. Why do people love 4? Because 4 has this persona of being overall pretty happy fella, right? They have a smile default face. However, they'll screech at anybody who gets near them. Same thing goes for Animatic. Animatic, plays up the high persona and does anything. Right, of course, this fella is way different than those, but like it holds that same candle. Right, where it's like as soon as a host comes in, has a happy face while murdering people, it's just an undeniable functionality. It is one of those object show things that just kind of like globally works on people, you know? Like to the point where, I'm starting to get desensitized to it. I'm kind of like, oh, okay, bro. But it's like I see it, but I get it and I see why it works. But yeah. We end up ourselves having some segments that are just completely random. Just say an answer to a question that we don't know. And then, of course, they got it wrong. Wow, so surprising. It's not even the pumpkin that wanted to try to answer the question. The app was just like, no, you go, you answer. You answer the impossible to answer question. Okay, bro. And then we end up having ourselves. I like how everybody who gets yeeted ends up ending up on the audience. There's just a bunch of dead corpses in the audience in the app. We end up having a talent show to end it off with yet again. I mean, even this set looks pretty good. Nice, she really does. This stage looks very stunning. I like purple as well. That definitely helps. But it looks very good. Nothing ends up singing about a farm. It is one of the best songs I think I've ever heard. The Nightly Manor, it was pretty a soundtrack, but it doesn't hold a candle to the farm song. No, I'm doing a sarcasm. And that is yes, beautiful stuff. App did not indeed like it. Peppa apparently, everybody apparently liked Peppa's song, and that's the gag. Interesting enough, App glows in the dark, which is interesting. That is interesting. Why would you do? How can he do that? I don't know, but he can do that. And then for the Peppa Pig hairdryer, ends up then getting destroyed, and then eventually Nothing gets revived. And then ends up getting, what's the runner-up prize? Oh yeah, it's just some fella. I don't know what you are. And then you end up getting sent over into the dumpster. So that is episode 4 of BFPOR. Overall, I think that it does a good job. I think at reimagining the identity, right? It takes the primary core concept, right? It takes that core idea of what a show like that would have been, right? It takes that and then simply decides to take it, but it doesn't play too literally to it, right? It doesn't continue it in the literal way that it would have continued in 2018. It takes that same idea. And it tries to take that same vibe and idea and incorporate it into the new era, right? By making it more suitable for like longer term, right, in terms of like having the jokes not be as reference based anymore, not be as meme based, right, which was like the big problem that everybody suffered. Everybody thought the memes then were gonna last forever, so you end up having characters from then that were memes from then, but then you don't see as many characters that are memes from now because people have learned, right? So yeah, we take those main ideas and we turn it into a more longer lasting idea of a show, of course, with way better animation, wow, I cannot say, with way better writing. Oh my god. So I said like the word eBay 40 times. What was that? That was horrendous. That might have been one of my worst speech failures of the 21st century. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, it improves on it. It gives some characters a little bit more personality type. Although it's still struggling on that front, because like we're looking like this show maybe focus a bit too much on App right now. Like we've had a big focus on App. App has had a crazy amount of screen time, right? As like the direct host of the game show, right? Because usually what happens is, how do we introduce characters? We do a challenge, right? The host has a challenge, and then the team just kind of go do it, which means that the host is no longer present, and the characters just kind of get to interact within each other, and we get to see their personality outside of like a direct thing. However, here we're kind of having the problems of our characters already. A lot of them don't have very, very clearly defined personalities, right? Except for like a few that we understand, but a lot of others we don't really. However, we're putting them in this setting where the main character is still the host, and anytime one of the characters get to speak, they don't get to speak from their mind, so we don't really get to exactly think about what they're thinking. We get to only hear the answer that they're put on the spot for, right? So it doesn't quite get to fit. So that's kind of the one thing that it's a little bit unfortunate, right? Like we really need something that just gets us to show these characters that have only so far had like 30 seconds total of screen time in these episodes, and start actually giving them a thing to do. Because yeah, that would be very useful. All right. It's time for the episode that released a couple days ago. It is the longest episode of BFPOR. It is titled Freak Show. And here goes. Alright, so that is going to be the 5th and currently latest episode of Battle for Palace Objects Reloaded, or BFPOR. So, we have quite an episode here for sure. I think that one of the things that I have to say about this show as a whole is that, like, it's been interesting to watch these because, like, as far as the big ones go, right, as far as shows go, I think that this show can very reasonably place itself in the category of one of the big dogs, right? It's, of course, there are bigger fish, however, it is a pretty large fish. Again, it's got 50,000 views in a day. Its voting count, I think it was over 10,000 for this episode, for example, right? We peaked at about 600,000 views. Like we got in big numbers, right? Which is relatively important because unlike a lot of shows that felt like that like are the big dogs, this one has had a hard time cashing in on that, right? Because it's like this show has had its way of being like an old show that was funny for the time, however played way too much with the time, meaning that when you look at it now, it ends up being a little bit of a problem, right? And then here it tries to has episode 3, which is a grand comeback. However, it can do a grand comeback because it has to sort out the past, so it does that. And then episode 4, it has to kind of play itself a little bit more, I guess a little bit safer, because it has to go, okay, let's show off the brand new vision. So they decide to do some very impressive stuff at a technical level, on the actual writing itself, fill it with the jokes, right, and in general do pretty well. However, I didn't actually feel that it was the most innovative episode in the world, because as I pointed out, we're kind of just doing the easy cash in host who murders, haha, right? But other than that, it was kind of that. But then I think that this episode is it finally trying to cash in on what it has, right? Not cash in terms of money. They already did that with the cheese push. I mean, cash in terms of properly getting a show with a proper identity, a show the high quality things that you can do as a show of this caliber, right? To include, including a lot of sets, a lot of angles, a lot of unique ideas, right? A lot of like building up on previous lore to keep people wanting to watch, because right, like, you need to remember what happened before to see what happens after, right? Reoccurring gags, but also new gags in each episode, right? Musical numbers that are always beloved by lots, and I think this one got a lot of praise for it. I heard about it. Which means that, like, yeah, this episode really, like, in the way that the last episode was showcasing what the new identity could uphold, I think that this episode really tries to settle it, right? I'm expecting that this and how this episode functions and how this episode goes is roughly where it is going to function for the rest of it, right? We end up having a couple of gags in a competition that is roughly settled. However, it's not completely settled because we got App, who's pretty nondescript about what they want. Like, they don't really understand much. So yeah, Blue Suitcase, left half ends up getting eliminated, which makes sense. However, we end up having App eliminated them because the problem is that Blue Suitcase's halves, for some reason, Blue Suitcase is managing to reform because they can do that apparently. Now, interesting thing there, absolutely. Because why, we don't know. We don't know, and Blue Suitcase doesn't know as well. I like to be fair, the gag of, like, why are you alive, and then Blue Suitcase but started to have the existential crisis because haha, they do that, and I is like, oh, okay. Again, I'm saying that joke by reference is bad, usually. However, to be fair, that the character is called Blue Suitcase, but what do we do? But yeah, eventually we just decide to make them a whole team after we end up doing that. And they call it the Blue Brigade, which is fun. I wish they actually tried to... I wish the Blue Brigade actually ended up doing anything in the challenge. It's kind of unfortunate because it's a funny concept. You know, like, it's that type of concept that's like, yes... You know, sure, why not? However, it's not really a concept that gets explored that gets explored a lot, right? It ends up being it's kind of a bit more out there, right? However, it was a fun gag for sure. So Mr. Jam, all right, intercepts the show while App is talking. Mr. Jam, very cool design, by the way. Looks like a rock star. We end up having them be from apparently the anti-Publa pummeling institution stopping gross abuse yesterday, which of course the acronym stands for App is Gay, which is fun. I mean, it's a little bit of a dangerous tactic here from this guy. I'm not gonna lie, considering he wants to be on App's good side to let him do the challenge, but okay then. Either way, I think App nearly definitely clocked it, but just kind of didn't say much. But yeah, we end up having ourselves the challenge, which ends up being to take care of the Publas. Everybody gets one Publa, and they have to take care of it. If you remember, the Publa is the thing that got sent in the dumpster by Cheese Slice the other time because it was the prize. So yeah, each team has to take care of it. Now, let's see what we end up doing. What each team ends up doing. So, the team with Pumpkinhead, the Peppa Pig fellas and everything, they end up kind of just getting superbly confused. Like, they end up going, yo, we need this fella to not go into traffic. They go into traffic, okay. But then basically they decide that, okay, we need to go make a cage for it. But then kind of this team, okay, I'm not gonna lie. It has been consistent with this team's ability throughout the challenge. However, no, yeah, this team is absolutely freaking, like, it throws themselves off track by a million times. They can do something fine, and then they're just gonna destroy it. Like, they do pretty abysmally at the challenge entirely by just, like, flopping each other and throwing themselves in the cage for absolutely no reason other than they felt like it. You know, that's no logic. But anyways, the other team, okay, Team with Nothing and Shearball, so they were gone. They were gone doing something. What were they doing? I'm sorry, I don't exactly remember what they went off to do. Oh yeah, they were doing the elimination, no? I think they were. No, they weren't doing the elimination. That's the other team. Wait, what were they off doing? Wait a minute. Am I blind? Hold on. Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. They were making fun of cheese slice. Okay, yeah. My bad. They're drawing on cheese slice. I'm sorry. I'm dumb. But yeah, they end up being like, we don't know the challenge. So then see the other team putting them into a cage and throwing food at it, and it's like, oh, we have to torture it, right? So they end up trying to torture it. It doesn't really work. I mean, obviously, torturing it is a bad idea because it's not what you're supposed to do. However, they end up doing a pretty bad job of torturing it to the point where it's not good. it really ain't great. They still do okay, despite that, because it's not amazing. Eventually, what did they end up doing? But I'm sorry, it's just hard to, it's hard when it's hard to sometimes discuss these episodes because they go of course sectionally, right? Like it's not one full section and one full section because that'd be boring, right? So I end up going section by section by section, and I don't want to, when I'm doing the catch-up, I don't usually like to switch it session by session. I find it really interesting. What a character interaction, the way that somebody bumps into nothing. I think that's that's really interesting. But yeah. Then we end up having the trio. So the trio of Frosting, Topaz, and Toy Train. So Toy Train just absolutely hates it. They're gonna puke. Frosting doesn't really like them either. But Topaz goes like, no, we have to cherish them and love them. And of course they go, the only thing that coming now is a musical number. So of course it's time for a musical number. The main musical number of the episode indeed, although there is quite a bunch of singing in this episode in general. Show that freak a little kindness. This is fun. It's a cool song. I have noticed that it is like a thing that a lot of shows tend to do, is that a lot of shows, you can tell, they end up being very musical theater. These tracks are very theater. In a lot of cases, at least like a majority of the ones that I've heard, which I mean, it makes perfect sense because at the end of the day, they do play in the same way that a song would play in a musical, right? It's very much so like they're doing a thing and then they're singing about doing the thing, right? Which is interesting. So yeah, I personally don't blame it. It sounds good, and I really like musical theater performances because at the end of the day, they're songs that tell stories, and I think songs that tell stories are great, right? Because songs that tell stories, they end up having this type of clearer progression, right? Which when you're listening to it, it makes you feel satisfied because it makes you feel connected, right? Because the first chorus not gonna be the same as the second chorus, right? The first verse not gonna be the same as the second verse, right? It's gonna be it's gonna be some variating. Which I think ends up being pretty nice. When you're doing musical theater as well, you don't necessarily need to make everything rhyme super perfectly because you're just trying to tell the story, right? The characters don't have to sing perfectly as well because they're just trying to sing, right? And then everything's going pretty, and that stuff just goes well, right? So it lands pretty well. There's a reason why that type of music, has a lot of fans. I also enjoy the music, and I enjoy this track quite a bit. So when we're trying to clock why does this style of music work so well, I think it's because of that reason. I think it's because it has clearly laid out progression. It sounds good. It's nearly always going to be unique because the story that it's telling is always going to be different and with a different character and with a different thing, right? It's very rare for two music theater songs to feel the same. So it ends up that, yeah, it's solid. It's all that stuff. As usual, the visuals take a massive... it was just good. The visuals for this episode are just very good. It does definitely help the fact that the show uses that new style. The new style that it decided to acquire is very solid. It's a very good idea to give itself a little bit of identity. Yet again, it's taking the very good stage idea, right? The very good stage, and then adding new layers onto it, and it is in fact we get to see the stage. The stage ends up being utilized in the musical performance, as well. At least a portion of the stage, right? A stage ends up getting used in the elimination area. That's just V stage. So yeah, I'm glad that we're using the best set ever invented. But yeah, so they end up doing very well. To be fair, I'm not gonna lie, I was half expecting the joke that they were just gonna flop completely. I was half expecting that they were gonna sing a song and dance, and then they're gonna whatever. But no, they end up deciding that they're gonna bring them out to the store. Driving on the toy train, of course, because they do that. I think Toy Path definitely kisses Toy Train at some point in the episode. I don't remember when. It wasn't during the song and dance. It was the outro, right, when they win. I think that's roughly when they do that. Yeah, I don't really know, but look, I'm still unsure. Toy Train has never given a single positive statement in Bro's life, but we'll go with it. Then we end up having ourselves the other jazz. Oh yeah, bowling ball singing Stack the Frogs. Yes, that was great. I love that gag. Bro, I'm not gonna lie. Wait, did the public get the wrinkly one listening to the song? No, they didn't actually. I like how they end up throwing bowling balls to the orphanage instead. Does the bowling man ever come back? No, I guess it's just in the orphanage now. Okay, that's fun. Like it's getting adopted. But yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. Do people actually sing that? Do people actually sing these songs? No. Because I feel like they don't. I've tried. I think they're thinking. There's a song. There's a song about like counting sheep or whatever. They go to sleep. I never could do that. It's too much work, you know. Like that's kind of one of those things. Yo, random side tangent. Have y'all ever like, you know, like actually had to think something specific and then it worked to get you to sleep? Because personally that's never worked for me. Personally, like when I go to sleep I have to just let my mind wander out and think whatever it thinks, because that's the easiest thing to do. If I'm specifically focusing on nothing about anything, only thinking about 1, 2, 3 Mississippi, then it's like, well, I mean that's gonna take more effort than just thinking whatever I want, whatever it thinks naturally, right? I don't know, whatever, side tangent over. I end up having these ice creams from the other freaking thing from BFPO. I thought that we did solve those. I thought that was like wasn't that like the post credit scene, that like sherbet, right? I thought that was that. I thought they did get a new design, but no, they didn't. I guess. Okay, that's weird. So that's this guy. The scream is so loud. They have a milk van, of course, which is kind of funky. For some reason they don't sell potato chips. Why do they not sell potato chips? Now I need to know that. You know what? That's the most important lore question of all time. Why doesn't the store sell potato chips? Yeah. One of the things I am also going to point out is, of course, they go to the store to talk about malls, to talk about the orphanage, all that stuff. They're in a society, which I think is good. I personally recommend, I would personally recommend having an object show be set in a society, because like it allows for so much more play, right? Because any place can exist within the society. We're just off in a grass field to do as like the showgrounds, but we're not necessarily there, right? So I kind of like that, even though I do. Okay. I'm gonna be honest, I do think that more shows should be set not in grass. I'm not gonna lie, I feel like there's an untapped market for shows that are not set in grass. However, it makes perfect sense, right? Because it's the clean slate where the host gets to form whatever they want, right? But like I like the addition of society over here, because it allows for a lot of other things rather than anything. Apparently, we get to find out that BFPOR merch gets sold of all the characters. There's frosting shaped pizza, Frosty, which by the way has nephews and stuff, which is really interesting. Aunt, the aunt of one of the freaking other frosting. They're really cute. But yeah, what were they selling? Oh, toy train fruit snacks. Fun. But yeah. And then eventually we end up discovering the secret. The secret is that actually, oh my god, Jam needed one of the publics to make a ringtone out of them because they listen to ringtones. OMG, that is crazy. Ringtone? It's a ringtone business? That's a thing? Like, that ringtones, that's like the most random thing. Hold on, what? Oh, who buys? Has anybody ever needed to buy a ringtone? Now hold the line. Buy a ringtone. Is that a thing people ever actually did? Cause I'm sorry. How has somebody ever done that? Like, just record it. That was a thing back. Right? Buying a ringtone. Fast. I mean, I guess if you buy an alarm clock, like freaking, you know the Nintendo alarm clock? They're called Alarmo. Maybe you'll have to buy a ringtone on that. But like, I don't know. Never actually saw it. But yeah, app still glows in the dark, which I still think is interesting. But eventually we end up having a random orange who ends up hearing the gigantic speaker. That makes sense. Everybody would be capable of hearing it. They end up also dropping in with a poobla, which gets rated. I don't think they get to join the show. They should. They should. I kind of think that they're interesting. You know, they're interestingly quiet. I'm not gonna lie. They have glasses, which is a unique design trait. They're interestingly quiet. It's by the way, I'm calling glasses a unique design trait. That's kind of sad. That's kind of sad. Can you have more characters with glasses, bro? That's like such a common thing. Ain't no way that having a character with glasses like a feature unique enough that I have to fucking point it out. I'm sorry, but anyways, yeah, they're pretty cool, but like I would probably have to join the show. But yeah, the blue suitcases end up not really doing anything because you know they don't show up in the episode, and they all end up just getting sent away. Like the idea which is that okay, blue suitcase it can be two, okay then be one, and then be your own team, and then be eliminated. So yeah, dude, the post credit scene, them fucking shooting down. Oh my god, like the freaking they literally just shoot down. That is a proper attack. Blue suitcase attack. It's a freaking what is it called? It's called a Fletcher. Right? It's like that medieval tool that shoots a shit ton of arrows. Like it's cool that. Well, that's kind of sick. That was one of my favorite scenes because it just looks cool, and like of course, also one of my favorite scenes is definitely the animal control, and then the follow up gag of man control coming in. Like, that's all very fun, but yeah, that's there's a lot of gags. I think that this episode has overall good gags. But if it's better than the last episode in terms of gags, yes, I will. That last episode was kind of preying on randomness a little bit, which makes sense. It was a game show, and the joke was like, oh, the game show doesn't make any sense, haha. However, like after the first two questions with the game show didn't make any sense, it starts going like, okay, how's it not going to make sense this time, rather? Like basically, you know the layout of the joke, you're just wondering how it's gonna get like twisted, right? It's like a Play-Doh, you know. However, in this case, you know, the jokes were more overall varied because the episode allowed for more overall things, right? Which is cool. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Like even the gag, like the voting screen, there's just being like a monster, and then App just fucking runs away from the voting. They just leave. There's nobody else hosts. It's just that it's just gone. Who is the monster? Like I'm trying to clock who that is. Like is that? Cause okay. Because the thing is, I don't remember. I didn't pay enough attention to notice if. I think that suitcase is right half in theory, right? So like if the blue suitcase is swap teams and eventually go, that means that like the blue suitcase get eliminated. Then there's a monster that has to get voted out or something. But I mean, I guess it depends. Are they actually up for voting? You know what? I never vote, but I have to check. Okay, let's do that. I have to check. Grammar reviews. Can I vote for the monster? No, you can't vote for the monster. What do you mean? What? You can't vote for the monster? What? But this is scam. This is rigged. That's crazy. Alright then. Okay. Well, that's fine. I think it would have been funny if you could vote for the monster. But, yeah. We end up having ourselves a fella's a blue suitcase attack. And then Apis barely doing a piano number for the fella, which I don't remember the name, the hamburger that's also Sonic that eventually gets eaten away. Because remember, App is gay. So they like, I mean, I'm presuming that's true, right? Like, especially because of the piano. Because I mean, like, okay, because like it's that type of thing where it's like, okay, the jam clearly wants to annoy the fella, so they would say a wrong statement. However, at the same time, it's also like maybe I guess it's not. Okay, cool. Good knowledge, right? So all right, and there it is. That is BFPOR with some nice art by Kofi. I think the last episode had it as well. Yes, they're good art pieces. I like Kofi's art. So now. what do I think of the show as a whole? Yeah, I mostly kind of said my opinion of the show as a whole as to start the discussion, right? How like it's felt like a big show that hasn't ever been capable of doing big show things because it's too busy figuring itself out. However, I think from here on out, I think it's figured itself out, and I think the next episodes, if they're going to be relatively consistent in this way, right? At least for a while, right? Because we don't, of course, like, probably for like the next 5 episodes or something, right? It should roughly stay this way, right? Because like we don't need a major episode right now. Like we're not in major episode zone, so we kind of need to just kind of have some episodes that happen, right? Because like, okay, you found the fundamental that works. It balances out being entertaining, having gags, being random. Like overall, I think this episode was very solid. However, like it has to just. But it's formed a foundation. However, like it's like if you make a wall, okay, that's a good foundation. However, you need 3 more. So like you need to do the 3 more episodes before you fully walled up. This is what BFPOR is. All right, and then with that, we can more properly later on, of course, deflect, right? It's kind of like, because for most shows, they set out what it is, and then they diverge, right? However, if this show hasn't set out what it is, when it diverges, it just proceeds to be the new setting, right? That's kind of what I'm getting at here, right? So yeah, all right. So yeah, I think that's all I can realistically say about BFPOR. It was fun. It was very fun. Saw musical numbers. I think Adam shouted it out, right? I heard that Adam did the shout out for the musical number. I think this played at the Texas screening, which I think a bunch of people went to. A couple of other stuff showed up at the Texas screening as well, which we. I mean, I think there's 1 or 2 which technically I could watch. However, currently I'm too far. I'm too far deep in other stuff that I gotta watch to actually get to it right now, so my apologies. But yeah, alright. I think I can fit in a couple of small little extra things. I don't want to cover anything too major because this is a BFPOR episode primarily. However, look, a couple of small additional things I can cover because an episode a bit longer than an hour 20 minutes I think is pretty valid, right? So we will get to it, okay? Alright. Sound good? Sound good. Bonus things that I don't know yet, but I'm gonna choose them out of the keep up pile, which is very large. Okay. Alright, since they asked, and it's been quite a while since then, I'm just gonna take this moment, even in this video, to just add in as a little bonus, the 2 keepers that we need to do a blood drop animation, or TTissocool. Because they've not only started another object show, they've also had a new episode of Trophy Takedown too. So I'm just gonna keep those here on the back burner because I feel like I wanted to cover them rather than waiting like 3 other days to do it. So yeah, I'm gonna cover them here because there's a little bit of time. At the Epic Object Show 1 is what we're gonna start with. Apparently, the first episode of that show. It is titled App not question mark App smiley face. Not probably not App as in the one from the show that we've just been watching. Although that would be funny. But all right, sure. Okay, so that is the Epic Object Show 1. So we get ourselves the introduction of all the contestants. Is the main thing that we get to see. We have got Fishy, we have got My Singing Monsters, yes, the game. We've got a guy called Aaron, Smile Guy, the Knight, more chess pieces should be things in Object Show. White, Poison, and then like a cat called Meow, and then a Lamborghini. And yeah, so those are the contestants. Now, we have here, honestly, a pretty interesting challenge idea. Give your favorite app, and then the viewers vote on the best one, which is pretty solid. I would do it in reverse, though. Instead of having the viewers vote for the best app, especially since I'm doubting that this show is going to get too many votes, right? Because, we're still small. I would probably recommend making it that they vote for the worst app because it's usually because in a vote to save it's way more likely that there's going to be a tie at the bottom rather than a vote to eliminate where it's way less likely that someone's going to stand out at the top, right? But other than that, yeah, I think that this cast is pretty decent. I like characters like Poison and Knight. Some of them are a little goofy, like the Lambo and Meow, who's just one singular image of a cat. Is that like hold on, like if they're called Meow. Let me tell you something. Markiplier. Is that the thumbnail to Meow? I want to know. What is the thumbnail to Meow? I need to know. Okay, no, it's a different thumbnail. I just wanted to make sure. But yeah. Alright, with that, it is now time to head down to the next show that we're going to be taking a look at from Blood Drop, because it's episode 3 of Trophy Takedown 2. Last time, if you remember, we had ourselves the fella going over to the store and eating food while the contestants read out the votes, and then they ended up going for and then a team Everybody Loves You went up for elimination because they weren't up for elimination in the first episode, which was pretty random logic. Let's go to episode 3 called Get 'Em. Alright, so that is the third episode of Trophy Takedown 2, and you know what? I like that. I thought I was actually quite a fan of that episode. And so we have ourselves the guy, yo, I thought you were eating McDonald's. No, you actually downloaded a Slim in 10 Minutes app, which just tells you to jog, so now you're slim in 10 minutes. So after the elimination, we end up having Lucky Block get out. However, they end up speed running away, they end up rushing away. New challenge is to catch him. I'm starting to realize that this is a common challenge in object shows. However, yes, catch the eliminated contestant. They get a scooter. And they end up doing the challenge, and you know what? I actually thought that this was pretty solid. We ended up seeing a lot of the action, understood what was going on. However, it still happened pretty fast. Like, it felt pretty eventful, you know, for being 2 minutes, which is roughly the runtime of the show, right? 1:30-ish. If you discount the intro, right? It managed to have a pretty eventful challenge where a lot of stuff happened relatively quickly. However, it all made sense. None of it felt like it was getting skipped over. You know, both teams tried. Both teams showed their performance. One team just simply caught them. I thought that was pretty cool. Even the animation was pretty solid. I mean, again, it's not all 100% perfect. The background is definitely moving too fast for the scooters, especially when there's like no wheels to function. But overall, I think that it's pretty solid, right? But like, yeah, we get to see characters utilizing their own characteristics, like Poisonita being able to murder somebody by going on them, right? Battery actually moving their hands and making an O, because that creates electric discharge, and actually doing that, like, and since they're a battery, that creates super. That's just an excellent idea, right? So there's a lot of very cool things going on. We end up having the bow and arrow get shot, end up falling down. But yeah, I thought that the animation was very solid, and these voting cards, yes, look at these. Look at these voting cards. These are actually crazy. These are so good. Oh my god, yes. Okay, but overall, yeah, big fan of this episode. It really felt like this episode is it's exactly what it should be, you know. As far as like 2 minutes little episode, I feel like if we keep going on this, we will have a solid way. No, because I think that this was good. This was good stuff. All right. Yeah. All right. So with that, we can just go to the next thing. There's not much else to review. Alright, I'm just going to add one more thing as a bonus, because I don't know, I don't really want to have too much stuff as a bonus. I wanted to do that because it's kind of small and fits into any video, and I'm going to do one other thing that, yet again, the creator asked me, yo, you should check out a new episode drop, and I was like, okay. So it is EOOS. So EOOS, well, I do remember, it's the Every Other Object show. Every Other Object show was the latest show by Sam Alashi, supposedly not the main show. However, yeah, it was overall pretty cool. It had a solid cast, an Alge Brilliant that acted pretty fun, and then we ended up having ourselves the challenge to simply order a thing, and then they managed to order it. But yeah, I found a lot of quick little things that were promising with it. It's time for episode 2, which is significantly longer than episode 1. It is titled Xecret Xanta, but with both of them being X's. Okay. Alright, so that is Every Other Object Show 2, and I'm gonna say the full name because it doesn't ring off the tongue. Is that the saying? That's not that flow? Whatever. Anyways, this episode is pretty solid. I think that one of the things that this show does probably best, is just it has creativity, you know, like in the way like it's creative, you know, like it's simple in its nature, You know, like it's kind of it's a, like a flipper clip style show. You know, it's got some the backgrounds aren't, you know, there's not too much going on with the backgrounds, right? Like it's really simple. It's very simple in a lot of cases, right? There's no environment usually. It's kind of background and everything, but like what it takes is it still just does ideas. It just has ideas, right? From like the challenge that Secret Santa, it's a pretty unique challenge. I'm not actually personally seen that challenge before. I'm sure somebody has made it. That feels like the type of challenge that somebody has made. But like that's the good type of challenge. That challenge is like, oh yeah, that's the challenge that somebody should make. And then, but like nobody has made it. When you think somebody has, I think that's a good type of challenge. And even from just the random like poses that like or the triangle does in the way that they look, in the things that they do, right? I think it's interesting, right? In the way that like the screen transitions when the hand goes up, right? It's like it's these little ideas that happen in generally, or like the visual gag of stealing the Temmie's college fund, right? Well, like it literally doesn't need to be there. Like there's nothing in the writing that has it being there. However, the fact that it's there amplifies the episode because it's a nice little thing that we just wanted to do because we felt like doing it, you know? Same thing goes for like Crayon Celebration being for their face to just spin around like if it was 3D while their body doesn't move. Like that's fun. It helps the show feel more fun. It helps the show feel more cool. Even though it absolutely, you know, it's not needed, right? It's this type of not needed that give it the soul and give it the charm. All right. So yeah. Now, the main critique that I have to give is, however, on the music department. The music's too loud. Music is definitively too loud. It is it's roughly at the same volume as the voice, which means that at any moment where the music is going off, it's kind of hard to hear, right? Like it's relatively understandable because the voices are pretty clear. However, it's way better if it was way quieter, especially because I'm sorry, the music isn't great. It's very Chrome Music Lab. I'm gonna be very surprised if it's not made in Chrome Music Lab. And it's made in Chrome Music Lab without actually using the drums feature of Chrome Music Lab. So just kind of a bunch of notes that are you know, it's kind of like those types of sounds. But like with a marimba, so it just sounds very high pitched and not great. Which is unfortunate. I'm not a massive Chrome music fan enjoyer. But hey, I commend the idea of having original music. I don't mind it being there personally. I just think that like it's a bit loud, you know. If it was more in the background, it's like yeah, cool, custom music. Hey, it's what we can do, right? However, like in this case, it's when it's like at the forefront, it's like, oh, you want me to focus on the music? Okay, I'm focusing on it. You know. But yeah, overall, the fellas that end up being up for elimination end up being Magnet, Banana, and the Comedy Mask. This is one of those things where here I do think that the challenge should realistically probably be reversed, because like making the challenge get me a gift so that I can guess who you are would make way more sense if you just give a gift that's like you, right? That's like the very you core. It doesn't have to be a good gift at all, right? I think it would probably be a better challenge if it was a get me to guess wrong, right? So that way you have to specifically try to act out a gift as somebody else so that they don't clock you. However, of course, they're gonna know that you're trying to be somebody else, so you have to be somebody else with mindfulness that they're gonna be able to maybe predict that you're somebody else. You see, like that's like more isn't that just a more interesting challenge idea? It's like there's a lot more psychology going on in that aspect of it, and it's harder to rig, right? Because like with this, the host could just immediately like find an obvious gift that they know who it is, and then proceed to intentionally get it wrong because oh my bad. But then like in other cases, but then like in the reverse, they can't really do that because there's more options, right? Than just the one. Like it wouldn't be made so that it would be obvious who it is, basically, right? So it's harder to cheese the challenge if you were a host, right? But yeah, overall, yeah, absolutely. I think that it's pretty enjoyable. It's a very creative type of animation. You know, we do visual gags, which is nice. We do gags in general, which is pretty fun. So I appreciate the show for doing it. I would I mean, look, the next things that I would aim to improve, absolutely, first of all, making the music quieter. Second of all, I would maybe consider trying to add more backgrounds, like when characters switch, like having, their background change, right? Like for when a character is in one direction and then, like, when there's a conversation, it's like a character's talking and then we get to see the contestant. It's like there shouldn't be the same background, because then it just feels like there's a PNG in the background with different people on it, right? Instead of there feeling like there's actually two people in a world, right? Because the backdrop of where the contestants are is different than the backdrop of where the host is, right? It's like that level of importance. However, that's complicated to do, so I understand not doing it, and if we want to keep it simple, I probably would recommend not doing it. However, if we want to improve, it is one of those main aspects that I would look forward to. Okay, that was actually a very long analysis. I like that episode. It gave a lot to think. Let's go to the outro. These bonuses were very solid overall, actually. Alright, and that will be all for today's episode of Object Catchup. Yeah, those few little bonuses, I'm surprised they went as well as they did, because, I wasn't necessarily, like, the biggest fan of those shows, but those new episodes were really solid. But yeah, I didn't want to drop in too much else, because, like, it ends up diluting from the video. So we just dropped in those earlier ones, because, of course, I've been getting asked. So, for those, I decided, okay, fine, you get a little bit of special treatment. But yeah, overall, that was, the catch-up for BFPOR primarily. I'm very satisfied with that show. It's really interesting to see the evolution. Probably in terms of evolution, I think it was one of the most interesting ones, because like in nearly every episode, you can tell how like it was in like a different era of itself, which I think makes for a very interesting watching experience for specifically what I'm doing, which is kind of analyze and see what is going on while I'm watching it, right? Which I think is pretty solid. But yeah, for BFPOR, for the Epic Object Show, for Trophy Takedown 2, and finally for every other object show, the show, not literally every object show, we're all caught up. See you next time. Goodbye.